Today, we have something that's pretty near and dear to my heart. 1960 El Camino, and not just any El Camino. This is my first car. My dad and I found a pair of these things on the side of the road back in probably about 97, 98, and they sat under the barn for a number of years. Back in probably about 97, 98, and they sat under the barn for a number of years. And anyway, probably when I was about 14, we started building it, started tearing things apart. So I've actually turned every single screw on this thing. So in about 2011, sold it, shipped it to a gentleman in South Dakota, and always told him, hey, if things change, you want to ever get rid of it, give me a call. And anyway, since then it changed hands several times and ended up back in Texas. My wife was just scouring Marketplace and happened to see the car. And so I had a kind of a forever car, a 81 Trans Am that I'd done some things to. And as a result, ended up swapping the Trans Am for this thing back in a boat. So this has a LT4. It's still got the engine that it left here with. We had a Vortec engine in it first, and then anyway, I put the old LT4 in, had some graphics in it. It's seen better days, but it still looks decent for a driver. We're not going to be doing a whole lot of showboating around, just doing some cruising. And we're going to actually be bringing this thing into the 21st century with the Air Slamit's 5864 Impala kit. So this is going to consist of your front and rear airbag brackets, the 2,600 pound bags. This one I opted for because I mean it should be plenty for this. We just are running a 5-gallon tank. I've already got the bed pulled out of it. The escutcheon, or so we can get access to the escutcheon, the smuggler's hatch, the kind of the formidable and infamous smuggler's hatch. So that's kind of how it was when it left here. There's not much that has changed. I don't know that anybody's even been in there since the car left here 13 years ago. So we were able to pull that all apart. It's not going to be anything fancy. I had all, the subwoofers and stuff in there when I was a kid, and plexiglass and lights, and those before LEDs. I think even had the neon lights. It was really cool. But so right now it's got one purpose, and that's just going to be to mask and hide all of our air equipment. So we're running the Airlift 3P. The tank's going to be mounted here. We're going to have the 3P mounted to, it's not really a firewall. What do you call that? You know what you call that? No, anyway, I don't know what it's called. We're going to mount it to that, the forward portion of the wheel well, or the footwell, as it were, with the two-door wagons. So what else can I tell you about the car? We've got these brackets. These are going to be the rear brackets. I believe this is the upper bracket. I believe this is the lower bracket that goes in your coil spring pocket. 2,600 pound bag is mounted to that, but I just kind of wanted to stop there, get them in, make sure everything's going to work. We'll stop with the first one. This is going to be our front bracket. This is going to go up inside our spring pocket. This plate is going to bolt to our lower A-frame, or lower A-arm, excuse me. I already have upper control arms, but that's not necessary. This should work with your stock control arms. And we're back underneath the El Camino. We've just taken the nuts off the shock mounts and pulled those off. We're now slowly releasing the pressure on the rear end while trying to maintain a visual with our drive shaft clearance there, and it's almost bottomed out. We may even have to pull the drive shaft, but I don't think that we'll have to. So let's see, that's gonna be about it. We've got some movement, so we're gonna have to jostle those around a bit, get these rear springs out, and go from there and get our. So the problem that we're having is when the bottom bracket is in the middle hole of the lower bag mount, it's actually hitting the rear end. There's not enough clearance. So fortunately for us, Air Slam It has given us provisions for another mounting place to actually move that bag forward a little bit. So that's what we're going to do. For the 5 people out there that have 59 to 60 El Caminos that are going to use the smuggler's hatch to utilize their air management, or utilize that for their air management, hiding that away, we just drilled a hole. I measured about 5 inches from this tub, and anyway, that's going to put us right out of the top of that spring pocket. I was going to go ahead and go through the side and get my access a little lower, but you know, it's all hidden and there's not going to be a need for it. So what we're going to do is just pop a grommet in there like we have on the other side. Okay, so we have this upper bracket bolted in place. This is pretty straightforward, but I'm just taking extra time. What I did is put a grommet in there so I can run that air line through the top factory hole. And just for added protection, went ahead and ran that behind this factory bed brace that's built in the body. You also have the option, it probably would have been easier to just drill through that, come straight through there to the smuggler's hatch, or your floor pan, however you're going to run it, if you got a wagon. So anyway, that's we're just going to go ahead and tighten that up and get some pressure off of that rear end, and go ahead and pull it up some and then bolt the bottom bracket in. Okay, we've got the bags mounted, lines ran up there. This has a shield that goes over that. I didn't reutilize those hold downs. I just went ahead and zip tied that to there to make sure that we don't get any interference from the emergency brake cable into the bag. Other side, I've got that rear end also tied up so as to not put too much stress on the bag. It's got a little bit of dimple there just because it is pulling on just a little bit. It's not going to hurt it. It's not enough to hurt anything. So, yeah, that's what that should look like installed, finished on the rear. We've aired it up. Everything looks good. I've already begun taking off the sway bar mount. You may or may not have one. I actually added this sway bar to this car. There was no sway bar on it. It was non-existent when I first got the car, and actually won that sway bar at like Good Guys 2005, quicker suspension, and they've gone out of business. The guy's like in his 80s now, and he shut it down. So what we've essentially got to do is get a block. We're going to lift this up. We've got the rear supported. That's the main thing, safety third. And anyway, we're going to try to push this up. I don't think that's going to give us enough clearance, so we're probably going to have to remove this steering link. Sorry, it's early, I'm tired, and we'll do that on the other side as well. We've got that loose, ready for that to come up, and then we'll slowly release that that pressure on that spring. You know, springs can be dangerous. I shouldn't have to tell you if you're doing this that can be dangerous, but you can even see the distortion of that spring. I don't know how much of that's factory. I guess it does have a slight angle to it there, so there is going to be some distortion. But anyway, it's going to be interesting to see how much of that bag pocket that we've actually got to trim out. But we'll just kind of watch it unfold and go from there. So we have the spring sort of compressed. The ball joint's coming up, but it can't go any higher. We could actually remove that ball joint. It's actually got a way to remove it, but instead of doing that, I'm just going to try to take this steering link off and see if that gets us the access that we need. There's 2 bolts that go in either side of the spindle. We got the steering link off with a little bit of persuasion. What we did is we had to kind of move that around, move the spindle back and forth, and it'll just drop it down. Luckily it pivots here, pivots there, so you've got lots of points of adjustability while you're getting that thing out of there. Okay, so once you compress that spring up a little bit again, make sure you have something to stabilize the car. You don't want to jack it right off the lift. We're going to slowly let down on that, release the pressure, grab my rag and kind of move that out of the way. This should be no factor. It should be clear now. It should kind of move right out of the way. done this a couple of times, but I don't know that I've ever done one while I'm filming. Okay. That's about all the pressure there, and that spring's just going to relax. Just going to pull it down, jostle it around, may take both hands, and it should come out of there. Should come out of there. It will come out. Let me put this down and go from there. All right. What an angle that spring pocket is. No wonder those brackets are angled so aggressive. Got the bump stop out, and we're having a few issues getting the bolts in these factory holes, so it's my assumption that that's where they go. We're going to drill those out a little bit, try to clean them out, and get our plate marked where the location is and get that figured out. Those two are blown out. We're gonna put the plate in, mark our other holes. So we're drilling our other two holes that are opposite of the bump stop holes that will secure the inside of that bracket. We may have to drop the A-arm completely off, but I'm actually successfully drilling these. I'm just, the only thing in question is getting that cutoff wheel inside there to trim that spring pocket on the inside. I thought that it was on the outside that it had to be trimmed, and I'm gonna try to leave that outside intact. We're gonna look at our clearances after everything's on the ground, but we are gonna have to definitely trim some of the inside of that frame spring pocket out. All right, we've scored most of that with the cutoff wheel. We'll get in there with our grinder, clean it up. So we're just gonna kind of put this back and forth and get that to come off. I'm probably gonna have to use both hands. Okay, it's breaking away there. And again, we'll get in there with our grinder, clean that up. Okay. All right. And so we will grind that down and clean it up. And as that cut sits about like that, we should have clearance. I'm going to tighten it down, obviously, articulate it in the best position, but I think that's going to put us about that much clearance. That's going to be plenty, and then we'll just smooth all the edges. Okay, so we started out with these, basically just started cutting. We got a line, those are just eBay brackets, and the end result is going to be something like this. We did have to trim that fender for shock clearance. It shouldn't prove any interference, but and then just a relocation bracket down here. On the other side, I've got the 15s on, but when full turning, it doesn't seem like it's going to be an issue. We're still waiting on the front wheels, so as soon as we get them in, we'll kind of put them on, go from there, make sure that everything's going to clear. Okay, so we finally got it finished up. Got the 58 to 64 Impala air slam it kit, and it really turned out nice. We ended up going with 20s on the front, 22s on the back, Billet Specialties, the Speedway, and really like how it turned out. So, you know, Thomas and the guys over at Air Slam It were super helpful with any issues that we had. There's some different things that we're still actually waiting on water traps because they were on back order. So we've got the tank, the water trap between the tank and the manifold set up. It's actually, if you want to walk around here, it's just behind the fender well. It's up inside, and I just thought of it, so I probably need to bleed it. So you kind of Just have to fill for it, purge any water out of that. That keeps all the water out of the manifold. We could have even probably ran an extension up to the gas cap or something like that. So every time that we pretty much fill up with gas, we're going to go ahead and bleed that out. But really turned out nice. So we'll get you some glamour shots and kind of go from there. Be sure and like, subscribe in the comments, and we're going to put our affiliate link right here. So you'll be able to get some savings on that and kind of help out the channel when you bag your Impala, El Camino, X-Frame, Biscayne, Bel Air, wagon, any of those, a Buick, any of those Pontiac X-Frame cars. So hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, we did have to cut through, but have any questions, just be sure and leave them out in the comments. Thanks.